To make an anvil like this, you have to have a wood pattern, exact replica. A wood pattern that is split in half. It has pins that make it line up. So this is wood, it's just cheap 2x4 wood, and it is sealed, and then it's sprayed with dry graphite lubricant so that the sand won't stick to it. I won't go into how I made the pattern, but anyhow, I did design it on my computer and I made it on my CNC machine, but then I had to do a lot of shaping just by sandpaper. So the anvil goes, here's a copra drag, that's what they call it. I just call it the halves of a flask. So I put this in here. I use a 1/4 inch space in between. And it goes in here like this, and like this. I pack this full of sand, and I pack this full of sand, and I put cover on here, and I put cover on here. So I'll do that, but I'll do it in so I have some mold parting sand here, and not sand, mold parting powder. You can even use baby powder, Johnson's baby powder, but this seems to work better. You put a light coating on, and it makes so that the sand does not stick. I put a piece of wood in here so I don't have to pack that all full of sand. Sand, the Petrobond sand is a little bit expensive. It costs $2 a pound. But it's the only kind of sand I use to do this. Okay, that's a good, it makes it very slippery. And here is Petrobond sand. I will put the sand in here, and I will pack it tightly. So I will cover the whole thing with Petrobond sand. Then I will fill in the rest with used Petrobond sand, which is much blacker, but it still works. But I use the very best against the surface of the pattern. And I will pack that in there using a packing. Pack it very tight. It takes about an hour to completely do both sides, fill it up and everything. So I'll put that on fast time lapse. Okay, so the bottom half down there is packed full of sand with the pattern inside, and this is where I will pour the molten metal in, and this is going to be the center vent hole. And right underneath this pattern, the other pattern is still in the sand, and it's totally lined up because the pins go through the glass. The pins go through the glass and come up and help this piece to line up. So there is our crucible that we will use. And there is some copper that has been flattened that would probably fit in the crucible, you know, like that. But how do I fit that other stuff? How did that long tubing? How can I get that in this crucible? It simply does not fit. So I will have to flatten it. Have you ever heard the saying that to make an anvil you have to use an anvil? No, I've never heard that saying, but you've heard the saying, it takes one to know one. So what we'll do is we'll use an anvil to make an anvil. So we'll just have to beat the heck out of it. So here are the 4 ingredients that we will try to fit into that crucible. Here is the copper, and that is the zinc, and that is the lead, and that is the tin. About 204 ounces of copper, and about 7 ounces of zinc, 2 ounces of lead, and 20 ounces of tin. We'll try to get that all in there. I don't think it's going to fit. We'll see. So this is my setup to melt metal. That's the furnace that I made from an air compressor tank. Well, and I use a hot plate to preheat some of my tools. And there I brought that up from the basement, and I put clamped on the outside with wood, because when you pour it in there, the sand gets really hot and it doesn't have any strength, so you have to clamp it a little bit because it would try to push out maybe. I was able to get all of the metal into one crucible, but you can see it sticks out the top quite a bit. I'll have to watch that. That's the dry graphite stuff that I spray. That resists heat very much. I spray it into that stuff. Yes, I got interrupted by a phone call. But anything that I have left over after I fill my mold here, I will pour in there. And these I will heat up. Always heat everything up, and I will put it on top here like that and like that. So and these tools here, that spoon I use to take the dross out, and I use the other one to stir it, and I will put those tools on the top right there to heat up so that they're good and hot when I use it. And here's looking down into there. There are bricks there where the crucible sits on top, and I will put this down there, a layer of carbon before I put the crucible in, before I fire it up, and that will put a layer of carbon between the crucible and the bricks, and the crucible won't stick to the bricks, and of course it'll burn up. So here's a sweeper that I use to provide air. It has 2 holes. It can be a sweeper or it can be a blower. So I can adjust the airflow, how much air I want to go in there, and I use LP gas like this. My gauges show me how much I've got in the tank, which let's see. Open the tank, see the tanks shows 140 pounds of pressure in there right now. And there's a valve that I can use, and I will always just use about 5 pounds of pressure over to the furnace. Your barbecue grill uses about 3 pounds of pressure. So we're going to light the furnace. We'll turn on the air. It takes about 40 minutes for it to get completely melted and ready to pour. So you would think that I could wait until things cool down before I open it up. No, I can't do that. I have to know what it looks like. This is the first time that I have melted clean copper to make bronze. I've always used dirty copper that had a lot of slag, and I had to skim a lot of stuff off the top. So this has a completely different color than the other ones that I pulled out of the mold. And yeah, the sand is still hot, you know, and that's very hot there. And no more red in there, but it's very hot. Yeah, it's the first time I've melted clean copper to make bronze. So did you notice what color the crucible was when I pulled it out of the furnace? Yes, it was white or bright yellow. And then as I was pouring it, it began to become more orange and reddish. Anyhow, so it puts out a lot of heat, and I wear these thick gloves to protect my hands, and this thing to protect my face. And this thing, the plastic shield, it is very hot when I take it off. And I wear this apron here to protect my legs because it will burn right through the blue jeans. The heat is so immense, and I wear this leather jacket over my arms and top so that, just to protect myself. So the crucible has now cooled down a little bit, and you can see that, remember I skimmed some dross or slag off the top? Well, a lot of it sticks to the side of the crucible, so I will have to clean that out again before I use it again. But how much? Well, we're gonna find out. So I measured out 15 pounds of metal that I put in that crucible. So here's the anvil. That weighs almost 12 pounds. Here's the pieces that I cut off and the pieces that was left over. And what do I have? I have 14.6. That means I'm 10 ounces shy. That means I had 10 ounces that disappeared into thin air, or it's in the crucible, or I skimmed it off the top. But it always seems to me that it disappeared into thin air. It's a mystery. Here are some of the anvils that I have made. I did not reveal any super secret trade secrets. I have kept them to myself. Bless you. Have a great day.